just hit the subscribe button, the red button, underneath this video over to the right, and that'll sign you up on my YouTube channel. And then you can hit the small bell icon, so a little bell will go off and tell you each time I've started to broadcast a new one. I hope you enjoy it. Hi. In my lunch alert, special alert actually, it was a sort of late night snack alert after the State of the Union finished last night, I described my view in general, that I think it was a triumph. I think that he was just terrific. And what I'd like to do today is go through the specific parts of the speech that I thought were really good and really effective. Overall, you know, CNN and CBS both did instant polling of people who watched and found that almost 60% approved. And that's really 60 out of 60, because he'll never get approval from the Democratic base. So what he's looking for is approval from his 40% and then the independent 20%. So he scored unanimously, really. I thought that he opened the speech brilliantly with his overt patriotic appeal, his talk about D-Day, about the moon landing, and his saying that his goal was to create an amazing quality of life. That's something Americans need to really understand about his agenda. And then his appeal for no resistance, no anger, instead compromise, greatness or gridlock, results or resistance, choose greatness. Absolutely terrific. Bipartisanship, but with aspiration at the same time, moving ahead and moving up, as opposed to just fighting back and forth. Then he went through the details of his record. And the important thing to remember, as I think I said last night, is that most people don't know any of this because the media doesn't cover any of this. They don't give him the right time of day, and they won't cover any achievements of his administration. As far as they're concerned, it's all the wall, and there's so much more that he's done. So laying in the economic boom information that blue-collar wages are rising faster and explicitly relating that to his campaign commitment, and then pointing out that Black and Hispanic wages are rising faster and unemployment is lower than it has ever been, I think was very important for him to point out. And then he talked about various other aspects of his program that he's passed. For example, the right to try medication. If you're seriously ill and nothing else is working, you now have the right to try experimental medications, not approved by the FDA, but being tested so that you can at least try something and hope it works. Very important bill that he's passed. His focus on opioid addiction, his reform of the VA, those are things you don't hear about, and I think he's done a great job, and it's very good to hear him explain that to people. Then I thought he did a wonderful job in talking about the Sentencing Reform Act. As you know, I had my concerns about that bill, but by bringing up that woman who was in prison for 20 years or something, and for a first-time drug offense, and has now been released but was facing a life sentence, and she was crying up in the balcony, that was so impressive, so important, particularly because she was a woman and because she was Black. And it really cut across the whole grain of the Black animosity toward the Republicans that they use imprisonment as a form of racism. That's not an accurate accusation, but it is so great to see him respond in that compassionate way. And then on illegal immigration. First of all, he made the clear case, which I thought was great, that this is the working class versus the political class. That the working class needs the walls and barriers to eliminate competition for jobs and wages. And the rich people, the political class, have their own walls. They have their own means of protecting themselves. And then he laid the case for immigration squarely on the basis of compassion, not racism, not exclusionary policies, but compassion. Talking about how migrant children are the pawns, human traffickers, angel moms whose children are victimized by crime from illegal immigrants. Then he explicitly embarked on a riff about feminism that was fantastic and so needed as he's losing college-educated women. He pointed out that women get 58% of the new jobs he's created, that there are more women employed now in the labor force than there have ever been. And then he turned to the the Democrats in Congress, who were sitting there dressed in white, the women, and said that there were more women in Congress than ever before. And that was so counterintuitive in terms of what people would expect him to say. And he praised it, and he got wonderful applause as a result of that. That's just the kind of symbolic rhetoric that is so important in a president. And then he talked about lowering healthcare costs, lowering drug costs. He said, which I didn't realize, that prescription drug costs have dropped by more this year than they have in the last 46 years as a result of his focus on competition for these prices. His progress in eliminating HIV, his focus on childhood cancer, a new area that really has not been part of the political dialogue, and having that wonderful, beautiful 12-year-old girl, 10-year-old girl in the balcony who's battling cancer was a wonderful, wonderful touch. And then he didn't compromise his positions. He came right back and he said that he would wanted a wall, but other forms of immigration reform as well, and southern border protection. And he said very clearly that he opposed the idea of abortion for the entire pregnancy, and spoke about late-term abortion as a particularly cruel operation. And it was very significant that the Republican women sat on their hands during that, when they're actually describing killing a baby on the way out. So I think that was also very effective. And then finally, I think that it was very important that he ended by saying that he would not adopt socialism. That socialism was the enemy. It was not the American way of life. And I think that was brilliant to bring it there, and it sets the campaign theme for 2020, to use these crazy Democratic positions against the Democratic candidates and describe them as overtly embracing socialism. And I think that was a very key distinction in linking socialism to the crisis in Venezuela, where the average Venezuelan, God help them, has lost almost 20 pounds of weight in a year, not through dieting, but through starvation. And then I felt that he was wonderful in his focus on the Holocaust, having the Holocaust survivor and the veteran from the military troop that liberated Dachau sitting there side by side. Two very old guys, but so important. And I think that in doing that, he's now reached out to blacks, to women, to Jews, to all of the core Democratic constituencies in a marvelous way, and made clear that he has compassion, that he knows they're there, that he cares about them, and that he shares the fundamental premises of their movements, the fighting of anti-Semitism, the growth of female employment, and the empowerment and employment, and the opposition to racism, particularly in the criminal justice system. Brilliant speech, brilliant outreach, and a great delivery on top of it. High marks. Thanks for watching. I have a new book out called 50 Shades of Politics. It's number 43 right now among political biographies. I'm actually ahead of Kamala Harris in the Amazon rankings. And it's a collection of 100 short vignettes from my life, and particularly interesting in light of yesterday's State of the Union speech, or Tuesday's, is that it tells the story of how I wrote the 95 and 96 States of the Union speeches for Clinton. And it's got some really amusing anecdotes, and I hope you like it. Available from Amazon and dickmorris.com, not in bookstores because it's self-published. Thanks for watching.